The dust still hangs in the air when she stumbles onto the gunslinger's land. Blood seeps into the dry earth beneath her, trailing in uneven streaks. Her breath comes in short, ragged gasps, every step a fight to stay upright. She looks up, barely able to keep her eyes open, but enough to see the cabin up ahead. She drags herself toward it, her feet unsteady, her hand pressed to her belly like she's holding the world inside her. She falls in front of the cabin, knees hitting the dirt with a muted thud. The gunslinger hears the sound, he's always alert. He steps out of the doorway, just in time to see her crumple. The weight of her body makes a dull sound when it hits the ground, and he's there before the dust settles. His boots kick up a cloud, and for a moment, the two of them are swallowed by the stillness. She looks up, panic in her eyes. Her lips are cracked and dry. "You don't know me," she whispers, her voice shaking. "But I need your help." He doesn't answer right away. His face is unreadable, shadowed by the brim of his hat. He takes in her ragged clothes, the blood staining her dress. Then his gaze moves to her belly. He doesn't flinch, doesn't hesitate. He kneels beside her. "I don't need trouble," he mutters, almost to himself. "I don't take in strangers." She grips his arm, her fingers weak but insistent. "I'm not asking." The gunslinger stares at her for a moment longer, his hand resting on the barrel of the revolver at his hip. The silence between them grows thick, heavy with something he can't place. "Where do you come from?" he asks. She looks away, her eyes darting to the empty horizon. "Far enough." He stands, lifting her to her feet. Her weight leans into him, the fragility of her presence unexpected. "Come inside," he says, his voice flat. She doesn't argue. She doesn't say anything. She just lets him guide her into the cabin, her body tense under his touch, as if the walls themselves might close in on her. Inside, the fire crackles, its orange glow casting long shadows against the wood. She sits slowly, her body shivering from more than just the cold. He doesn't speak as he tends to her, wiping the blood from her skin, applying pressure where it's needed, his movements brisk but careful. Her eyes are half closed, lost in the fog of exhaustion. "You've been running," he says, his tone more observation than question. She doesn't answer. Her eyes flicker closed, but then she opens them again, meeting his gaze for the first time. There's something in them, something old and familiar. He doesn't know her, but he feels it, deep in his bones, like a memory he's long buried. The silence lingers, the fire crackling between them. "Who are you?" he asks finally. She shifts, turning her head away. "Does it matter?" He looks at her, the lines of his face hardening. "Everything matters out here." She doesn't respond. She doesn't have to. Her presence is enough. As the night stretches on, the gunslinger stays awake, sitting near the fire, his eyes fixed on the stranger. Her quiet breathing, her slow, deliberate movements, they haunt the space between them. The past, whatever it is close, too close, and it's something he can't quite shake off. He doesn't know why, but he knows one thing, he's not going to let her go. Not yet. And maybe, just maybe, she's the one who needs saving. The night settles into a cold silence. The gunslinger stokes the fire, watching the flames curl and snap, casting flickering shadows against the cabin's walls. He sits by the hearth, the crackling logs the only sound in the space. The woman rests on the cot across the room, her face pale under the dim light, eyes closed, breathing slow but shallow. Her condition is worse than he first thought, but she's alive. For now. He can't sleep. His body feels like it's been carved from stone, but his mind keeps turning. A memory nudges its way forward, stubborn, like it's been waiting to be remembered. A face. A night. A fire. He looks toward the mantel. The photograph of his wife stares back at him from its frame. Her face is soft, full of life, full of a time when things were different. Before everything. He runs his fingers along the worn wood of the mantel, feeling the roughness of it beneath his touch, a comfort of the past that never truly left. He shakes his head, pushing it back. It's just the silence playing tricks. Just the isolation. The woman shifts on the cot, a small moan escaping her lips. He doesn't move at first, not wanting to disturb her, but when he sees her eyes flicker open, his gaze locks onto hers. She stares at him, her eyes wide, unsettled, and yet, there's something else there. Recognition. Something buried beneath the fear. "You're awake," he says quietly, his voice hoarse from the cold air. She doesn't speak at first. Her eyes slide away, as if she's searching for something, trying to anchor herself. "I know you," she says, her words fragmented, thick with exhaustion. He's on his feet in an instant. "You don't know me." She looks at him then, and there's something in her expression that sends a chill down his spine. "You do," she says. Her voice is barely a whisper now. "You just don't remember." He takes a step back, his heart thumping faster in his chest. She says nothing more, but her eyes linger on him, heavy with a weight he can't place. He tries to dismiss it. He shakes his head, muttering under his breath, "I remember nothing." The woman slowly sits up, wincing from the pain, clutching her belly with both hands as though it's the only thing keeping her tethered to this world. The fire crackles in the corner, but the warmth doesn't seem to reach her. She leans forward, eyes locked on the gunslinger's face. "I know you," she repeats, her voice sharper now, despite the weakness. "You remember the fire." He doesn't answer. His gaze shifts to the wall, the old scars in the wood, the peeling paint. The memories begin to press in again, uninvited, suffocating. There's something about her words, the fire, the past, and it hurts more than he expects. He swallows hard. His throat tightens. "It's just the silence playing tricks," he mutters, as if the words could push the feeling away. She lets out a small laugh, bitter and soft. "You think it's just silence?" The words hit him like a slap. His mouth goes dry. The room feels colder. "What do you want from me?" he asks, the edge in his voice betraying his calm. She stares at him for a moment, the flickering shadows casting her features in a jagged light. "You can't outrun the past," she says quietly. "You can't hide from what you did." The gunslinger closes his eyes, fighting the wave of guilt that threatens to swallow him. He hasn't thought about that night in years. He's buried it as deep as he could, but here she is, dragging it all back to the surface. He takes a deep breath, his jaw clenched tight. He turns away from her, his eyes moving to the dark corners of the cabin. "I don't know what you're talking about," he says, though he knows it's a lie. The woman doesn't press him further. Instead, she lies back down, turning her face away from him. She pulls the thin blanket up to her chin, her body trembling. The gunslinger stands there for a long moment, his mind racing, his hand twitching at his side, reaching for the familiar weight of his revolver. It's a reflex. The past has a way of doing that to him, pulling him back, making him forget how far he's come, how far he's tried to run. Finally, he walks to the window and looks out. The land stretches into nothingness. The dark hills rise like forgotten giants in the distance, the stars above them nothing more than ghosts. It's always been like this, empty, silent, with only the weight of his choices to keep him company. He turns back to the woman, who is now asleep again, her breathing steady. He doesn't move. Instead, he watches her for a while, feeling the quiet settle around him like a thick fog. The memories are there, tugging at him, but for now, he chooses silence. It's the only thing left he knows how to do. Tomorrow will come. Tomorrow, she'll have to tell him everything. He won't be able to hide from it any longer. He won't be able to escape whatever it is that's pulling them both back to the fire. But tonight, he lets the darkness claim him again, and for the first time in years, he welcomes it. The morning light slices through the cabin's thin windows, casting sharp lines across the room. The gunslinger wakes to the sound of the woman stirring, her breath still ragged from the night before. He pushes himself up, the weight of the past lingering in the air like smoke, and steps quietly toward the stove, the only sound in the room the creaking of old wood beneath his boots. The woman is sitting up now, her back against the wall, eyes closed as if she's listening for something only she can hear. The fire's glow is dim, but it's enough to cast shadows on her face, tired eyes, too young for the weight she carries. He feels it again, that familiar tension in the air between them. She's not just any stranger. There's something buried deep between them, something old. She opens her eyes, slow, but her gaze never leaves him. I told you, I know you, she says, the words a quiet accusation. You remember me. He stiffens, the hair on the back of his neck prickling. He stares at her, his hands working with the kindling, but his mind is elsewhere. Somewhere far back. A night. A fire. Something lost. I don't remember anything, he mutters, the words like gravel in his throat. He wants to believe them, needs to, but it doesn't feel right. The memory won't leave him. She watches him for a long moment, the weight of her stare making him uneasy. You're lying. He doesn't answer, doesn't dare to. The words are already hanging in the air between them, thick with unsaid things. The woman shifts, discomfort twisting across her face as she moves. She presses a hand to her stomach, her fingers trembling. You don't know who I am, she continues, her voice steady but low. But I know you. I've been looking for you. The gunslinger's hands freeze, a sliver of doubt creeping into his mind. Why? His voice is sharp now, defensive, his patience wearing thin. Her eyes flicker to the picture of his wife on the mantel. For a moment, it seems as if time stops. Her gaze lingers there, but her expression doesn't shift. No recognition. Just a quiet understanding of something darker, buried deep. There's a man out there, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. He's coming for me. He turns from the stove, finally facing her fully. There's no hint of fear in her tone, only resignation. His jaw tightens. I don't deal with people's problems. She doesn't flinch at his words. You should. This man, she trails off, her eyes moving to the window. The wind stirs outside, dust and leaves swirling. Her gaze sharpens. He's not dead. He should be. But he's not. The gunslinger steps closer, the space between them shrinking. Her words sit heavy in the room, pressing on him like a slow, suffocating weight. You're telling me you're being chased by a ghost? She looks back at him, the corner of her lip twitching into something close to a smile, but it's not kind. I'm telling you that man is very real. And he's looking for me. He stares at her for a long while, searching her face for some sign of a lie. But there's nothing. Nothing but the rawness of her words, the truth spilling out like the blood she tried to hide. He doesn't know if he believes her, but he knows one thing for certain, she's not the only one with ghosts in her past. Who is he? The question leaves his mouth before he can stop it, a crack in his hardened exterior. She hesitates, the weight of her answer pressing down on her chest like a vice. You know him. More than you know me. The gunslinger takes a step back, his mind racing. He feels it now, the ache, the bitter taste of something familiar. The past creeping up on him. He remembers the fire, the screams, the way everything burned. But there's something missing, something that doesn't add up. You're not making sense, he growls, his voice rising. What are you saying? Who's after you? She lets out a breath, almost like a laugh, but there's nothing funny about it. She turns her gaze away, staring out the window at the empty horizon. I've spent my life running from him. And now, here I am. Running straight into your arms. The words hang in the air like the smoke from a long-gone fire. The gunslinger feels the tension snap tight around his chest. He knows it's not coincidence. He knows he's been dragged into something deeper than he can understand, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. His voice is low when he speaks, barely a whisper. If you think I'm going to help you, you're wrong. She doesn't look at him, doesn't flinch. I'm not asking you to, she says quietly. I'm asking you to listen. His hands ball into fists at his sides, frustration and something else, something raw, spilling over. What happens when this man comes? What then? She turns her head, finally meeting his gaze, and her eyes are no longer just full of fear. There's something darker there. Something that mirrors his own. Then, she says, her voice steady, you'll make a choice. A long silence follows, thick with the weight of her words. The gunslinger knows he's being pulled into something he can't outrun. He turns away, staring out at the land that swallowed up his past and his future. He tries to focus on the horizon, on the silence, but he can't shake the feeling that everything has changed. The choice has already been made for him. "Is that what you want?" he finally asks, his voice barely audible. "For me to choose?" Her gaze never leaves his back. "It's already been chosen." And just like that, the room falls back into its quiet rhythm, the fire crackling in the corner. The storm is coming, and neither of them can stop it. The air is thick with heat as the gunslinger stands in front of the cabin, his back to the door. He watches the dust swirl in the distance, the road stretching out toward the horizon like a never-ending scar. The silence presses in on him, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind through the dry grass. The woman is inside, still resting, though he knows better than to think she's truly at peace. Not with whatever it is she's running from. Not with what he feels stirring deep inside himself. The first sign of the sheriff comes in the form of a horse, its hooves pounding the dirt, the sound growing louder by the second. The gunslinger doesn't flinch. He knew this was coming. He just didn't know when. And now it's here. He sees the sheriff long before the man sees him. A shadow on horseback, a familiar figure riding low. The sheriff wears his badge like a brand, but there's no honor in it anymore. The gunslinger knows that all too well. The sheriff's horse kicks up dust as it approaches, the man sitting tall in the saddle, his expression unreadable. He stops just short of the cabin, the horse snorting, dust clouding the air between them. The sheriff's eyes lock onto the gunslinger's, and for a moment, time slows. The past presses in old grudges, old wounds. The sheriff looks older, the lines on his face deeper, but the coldness in his gaze hasn't changed one bit. "Long time no see," the sheriff says, his voice even, too calm. He takes a slow look around, his eyes sweeping over the land before landing back on the gunslinger. "You still hiding out here?" The gunslinger doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The sheriff already knows the answer. "Who's inside?" the sheriff asks, his eyes narrowing. "I can smell her from here." The gunslinger doesn't flinch, though his hand instinctively moves toward the revolver at his side. "What do you want?" The words are flat, but there's a steel edge beneath them. He knows why the sheriff's here, knows exactly what kind of trouble is walking through his door. The sheriff lets out a soft laugh, but it's not a pleasant sound. "You always were a man of few words. But you still remember how to use that gun, don't you?" He pats the side of his horse, as if the answer's obvious. The gunslinger stands his ground, his posture unyielding. "If you're looking for trouble, you're in the wrong place." The sheriff's expression shifts, just slightly, but it's enough to make the gunslinger's grip tighten on his revolver. He can feel the tension in the air, the weight of the past hanging between them. The sheriff dismounts slowly, his boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. "I'm looking for someone," the sheriff says, his voice colder now, more purposeful. "I'm sure you've seen her. She came through here, didn't she?" The gunslinger nods once, sharp. He doesn't speak, doesn't give the sheriff more than he needs. But he knows where this is going. "You know who she is," the sheriff presses, stepping closer, his boots crunching on the dry earth. "What's she doing here?" "She's not your problem," the gunslinger mutters, his eyes flicking toward the door. The woman inside is silent, but he can feel her presence, like an echo. The sheriff's presence, too, is a shadow looming over them both. The sheriff smirks, the kind of grin that doesn't reach his eyes. "She's always been my problem." He steps even closer, and for a moment, the gunslinger can feel the heat of the man's breath. "You don't think she's running from me? You think she came here for shelter?" The gunslinger's hand twitches at his side, but he doesn't draw. Not yet. He knows better than to make a move until he's forced to. "I'm not your sheriff anymore," the gunslinger says, his voice low, steady. "And neither are you. You've got no authority here." The sheriff's gaze hardens. "I've got the badge, don't I?" The gunslinger glances at the shiny piece of metal pinned to the sheriff's chest, the reflection of the sun glinting off it like a knife in the light. "It's a symbol, but it's a hollow one. The sheriff's power is a ghost, just like everything else around here. The gunslinger learned that lesson long ago." "There's no law here anymore," the gunslinger says, taking a slow step back. He feels the weight of his words settle in the space between them. The sheriff might wear the badge, but he doesn't hold the power anymore. Not out here. Not in these hills. The sheriff's eyes flicker toward the cabin, then back at the gunslinger. We'll see about that, he mutters, his voice darkening. You've always been good at running. But you can't hide forever. The gunslinger doesn't respond. Instead, he watches as the sheriff climbs back onto his horse, his gaze lingering on the door, knowing what's inside, knowing what it means. The sheriff clicks his tongue, and the horse shifts beneath him. With a final glance, the sheriff turns his horse, riding off in the direction he came from. The gunslinger stands still, his heart pounding in his chest. He feels the weight of the sheriff's gaze even after the man's gone. The dust settles again, and for a moment, it's as if nothing has changed. But everything has. The woman hasn't moved inside. The air is heavy with the tension that lingers in the wake of the sheriff's visit. The past is still here. Still waiting. The gunslinger turns slowly, his footsteps deliberate as he heads back toward the cabin. He knows one thing for certain, the sheriff won't be the last to come looking. And when the time comes, he'll be ready. He opens the door, stepping inside. She's still lying there, her eyes closed, but there's a new tension in her face now, a recognition that this place, this safety, is temporary. And whatever is coming, whatever the sheriff's search means, it's far from over. What did he want? She asks, her voice quiet but sharp. The gunslinger looks at her, his jaw clenched tight. Trouble. Just like always. She doesn't ask more. She doesn't need to. She knows. The sun dips low, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, but the gunslinger barely notices. He stands in the doorway, his hand resting on the frame, eyes narrowed as he watches the horizon. The sheriff's visit gnaws at him, but it's more than that. It's the weight of a past he's been trying to outrun, a past that's finally found its way back to him. Inside, the woman hasn't moved. Her silence hangs in the air like a thick fog, and he can feel it pressing down on him. Every step he takes is one more towards something he can't escape. He knows that. She knows that. He steps into the cabin, closing the door behind him. The fire crackles in the corner, but the warmth doesn't reach the cold, unspoken space between them. She's sitting up now, her hands still pressed to her stomach, eyes trained on the floor. She's not looking at him, not yet. But he can feel her waiting, as if she knows something he hasn't figured out yet. I told you, I'm not your savior, the gunslinger says, his voice quiet but firm. He walks across the room, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. She doesn't look up, doesn't say anything at first. You're wrong, she says finally, her voice steady, though the weight of her words hits harder than any gunshot. You're already involved. He stops in his tracks, the air between them thickening, as if the walls themselves are closing in. Involved in what? Her eyes finally meet his, and for the first time since she arrived, he sees something beyond the fear and the weariness. He sees pain. It's raw, unfiltered, and it cuts straight through him. Involved in my life. Whether you want to be or not. He shifts on his feet, the tension in his shoulders tight with frustration. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking, she responds, her voice steady but edged with a kind of quiet resolve. I'm asking you to help me survive. The gunslinger's jaw tightens. He doesn't want to hear it, but it doesn't matter. The words are already out there, hanging in the room like a challenge. He's been running from this his entire life, and now it's here. He can't escape it. Not anymore. The woman shifts, the pain in her expression visible now. I know what you've done, she says, her voice barely a whisper, but it cuts through the air like a blade. I know what you've run from. You think I don't see it? The guilt in your eyes. The way you never speak about the things that haunt you. He flinches, but he doesn't look away. He can't. I'm not proud of what I did, he mutters. But I can't fix it. I can't go back. She shakes her head slowly. You're not supposed to. But you can stop running from it. From me. His heart thuds in his chest, a reminder of the weight he's been carrying for years. He wants to turn away, to leave. But he can't. Not with her. Not now. The past keeps pulling him back, like the ghost of a memory he can't outrun. She sits up straighter, her face hardening, her eyes locked on his. I'm asking you to make a choice. Stay, or leave. But don't keep pretending like you don't know what's at stake. He stares at her for a long moment, the silence between them filled with the ghosts of old decisions, old wounds. He can feel them all closing in, the man he killed, the woman he left behind, the life he abandoned. But it's not just his past now. It's hers. And somehow, they're tied together. I didn't ask for this, he says, his voice raw. I didn't ask for any of it. She doesn't flinch at his words. Instead, she simply nods, her eyes never leaving his. None of us do. But we have to live with it. Every day. He exhales sharply, frustration rising within him. You think I don't know that? Then stop running from it, she says, her words like a quiet command. Stop running from the truth. The room feels smaller now, the air thicker. He feels trapped, not by the woman, but by the weight of his own choices. It's suffocating, and for a moment, he's not sure if he can breathe. The gunslinger moves toward the window, looking out at the darkening land. The hills are still. Nothing stirs in the air except the faint whistle of the wind. He can hear the distant echo of his own thoughts, the doubts he's buried deep, the guilt he's spent years silencing. You want my help, he says, his voice quieter now. Then tell me what's really going on. Tell me why the sheriff's after you. And tell me why you're here. Don't keep hiding it. For a long time, she doesn't answer. The weight of his words hangs heavy in the air. Then, slowly, she speaks. There's a man who thinks I owe him something. He's wrong, she says, her voice steady but laced with bitterness. But I owe him something anyway. He's been looking for me. He's been chasing me for years. And he won't stop until he gets what he wants. The gunslinger turns back to face her, his gaze hardening. What does he want from you? Her eyes flicker to the door, as if she's considering whether or not to tell him. Finally, she speaks, the words slow and deliberate. He wants me to pay for my father's sins, she says, the weight of it settling between them like a curse. And he thinks you can help him collect. The gunslinger's chest tightens. The man she's talking about, it's the same man from his past. The one he killed. The one who's been haunting him. He doesn't need to hear more. He doesn't want to. But he knows now. He knows what she's asking of him. He stands in the silence for a moment longer, the weight of the decision pressing on him like a stone. The choice is clear. I'll help you, he says finally, his voice low, almost a whisper. But you're not the only one with something to atone for. Her gaze softens, just a little, as if she's been waiting for those words. Then we both have a long way to go. The gunslinger nods once, the promise hanging in the air between them, silent but binding. The path ahead is unclear, but one thing is certain, whatever happens, they're in this together. For better or worse. And for the first time in years, he feels like he's made a choice that he can live with. The night is quiet, too quiet. The gunslinger sits on the porch of the cabin, the cool evening air biting at his skin, the fading light casting long shadows across the ground. The land stretches out before him, endless and silent, but the quiet feels like a warning. The woman's words from earlier still echo in his mind, her father's sins, the sheriff, and the ghost of a man he thought he left behind. He's made his choice. He's in it now. No turning back. Inside, the woman is asleep on the cot, but even in sleep, she's restless. Her breath comes in shallow gasps, her face twisted in pain, like she's trapped in a memory she can't escape. The gunslinger has seen that look before. It's the look of someone who's seen too much, who's lost too much, and who's running out of time. He reaches for his revolver, his fingers brushing the cold steel, but his hand hesitates. He never liked carrying it, never liked the weight of it at his side, but out here, it's a necessary thing. He turns the gun over in his hands, the weight familiar, comforting even, but something about it tonight feels wrong. It's a tool of survival, but it's also a reminder. A reminder of the things he's done and the things he's trying to forget. A faint sound reaches his ears, a horse's hooves, distant but growing closer. His heart skips a beat, and without thinking, he stands, moving toward the cabin door. He doesn't need to see the rider. He knows who it is. The sheriff is back. And this time, he's not alone. The woman stirs as the gunslinger opens the door, but she doesn't wake. He steps outside, his boots crunching against the gravel, the sharp sound cutting through the stillness. He doesn't say anything as the sheriff and his posse ride into view, their horses kicking up dust, their silhouettes dark against the fading light. The sheriff dismounts, his boots hitting the ground with a solid thud. He doesn't look at the gunslinger right away. Instead, he scans the land, his eyes lingering on the cabin before he finally turns to face him. "You didn't think you'd get away with it, did you?" the sheriff says, his voice cold, measured. He steps closer, his eyes narrowing. "You thought you could hide her out here, out of reach, but she's mine. And I'm taking her back." The gunslinger's hand tightens around the revolver, but he doesn't draw. Not yet. The air between them crackles with tension, the silence thick with the weight of the past. The sheriff steps closer, his gaze fixed on the gunslinger's face, like he's trying to read him, trying to figure out just how far he'll go. "I don't know what you're talking about," the gunslinger says, his voice low, calm. But inside, his heart is pounding, each beat a reminder of the things he's tried to bury. The woman's face flashes in his mind, her eyes filled with fear, her words haunting him. The sheriff smirks, his eyes flicking toward the cabin. "I know exactly what's going on here. You've been protecting her. You've been hiding her. And now, you're going to help me bring her in." The gunslinger doesn't move. His hand rests on the handle of his gun, but he doesn't draw. Not yet. "You think you can just waltz in here and take her," the gunslinger says, his voice growing darker. "You don't have the right." The sheriff's smile fades, his expression hardening. "I don't need your permission, cowboy. This is bigger than you. It's bigger than her." The words hit him like a punch. The sheriff doesn't know the half of it. The woman, her father, the sins they both inherited, it's all tied together in a way the sheriff could never understand. The gunslinger feels it now, the weight of it all crashing down on him. He's tied to her, tied to the past, and there's no way out. The sheriff takes another step forward, his hand resting casually on the butt of his gun. The gunslinger knows what's coming. He's seen it before, the slow approach, the taunting words, the false sense of control. But this time, the gunslinger isn't backing down. "You're not taking her," the gunslinger says, his voice low, almost a growl. "Not while I'm still breathing." The sheriff's eyes flicker with something, surprise, maybe, or recognition. He takes another step, his hand tightening on his gun. "You think you're the only one with blood on your hands?" he sneers. "You think you're the only one who's had to make choices?" The words strike deep, but the gunslinger doesn't flinch. He knows what the sheriff is trying to do, push him into making a mistake. But he's not going to give him that satisfaction. Not this time. "You think she's just a pawn in your game?" the gunslinger asks, his voice colder now. "She's not. You want her, you'll have to go through me first." The sheriff's gaze hardens, his lips curling into a thin smile. "You're making a mistake, my friend." The gunslinger doesn't wait for him to make the first move. In one swift motion, he draws his revolver and fires. The shot echoes through the stillness, sharp and quick, a crack of thunder in the quiet night. The sheriff staggers back, a look of surprise on his face, and then he crumples to the ground. The posse hesitates for just a moment, their hands hovering over their guns, but the gunslinger stands his ground, his eyes cold, steady. "You think you can take her," the gunslinger says, his voice low and final. "You'll have to get through me first." The sheriff's posse doesn't move. They're watching him, weighing their options. But the gunslinger knows. He knows they won't risk it. Not with the sheriff down, not with the fire in his eyes. They turn, slowly, backing away, not daring to make a move. The silence returns, thick and suffocating. The gunslinger stands over the sheriff's body, his revolver still in his hand, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He's crossed a line, and there's no going back. But the woman, the one who brought all this to his doorstep, doesn't come out. She's still inside, waiting, the past and the present crashing together in a way neither of them can control. The gunslinger takes one last look at the sheriff's body before he holsters his gun. It's done. For now. But he knows the truth. It's never really over. And whatever comes next, he'll face it. Just like he's faced everything else alone. The past doesn't let go. Not easily. Not ever. And now, neither does she. The night is thick with tension. The gunslinger sits at the edge of the porch, his feet resting on the step, the weight of the revolver heavy in his hand. The world feels too quiet, too still, as if it's holding its breath. The sheriff's body lies just beyond the cabin, cold and still, his posse scattered into the distance. They'll be back. They always come back. Inside, the woman is silent. He can feel her presence even through the walls. She hasn't spoken since the sheriff's death. She hasn't even moved. The gunslinger knows what's coming. He can feel it in his bones. He stands slowly, his joints creaking with the movement. The weight of his past, of the choices he's made, presses down on him like a mountain. There's no running from it anymore. The sheriff's death, just the beginning. The man she's been running from, the man who thinks he can claim her, he's still out there. And he won't stop until he gets what he wants. The gunslinger moves toward the door, the wood creaking beneath his boots, the revolver cold in his hand. He stops in front of it, his hand resting on the knob. The quiet is deafening. The stillness outside, the shadow of something moving just beyond the trees, the unease of knowing that everything is about to change. He opens the door. The woman's eyes are on him immediately. She's sitting on the cot, her hands folded in her lap, her face pale. She doesn't speak, doesn't move. She just watches him, the weight of the world in her gaze. "You don't have to do this," she says, her voice low, but sharp. "You don't have to go out there." He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. He knows what she's asking. He knows what she's scared of. But it doesn't matter. There's no turning back now. "You don't know him," she continues, her voice shaking. "You don't know what he'll do to you. To both of us." He steps forward, his boots silent on the floor. "I know exactly what he'll do," he says quietly. "He'll come for you. He'll come for me. And when he does, we'll be ready." She looks away, her face softening, a flicker of something like regret passing through her eyes. "I didn't ask for this," she whispers. "I didn't ask for any of it." The gunslinger doesn't respond. He doesn't need to. The past is a weight they both carry. And there's no escaping it. He turns toward the door again, the gun still in his hand, and steps out into the night. The world is darker now, the shadows deeper, as if the land itself knows what's about to unfold. The wind stirs, whispering through the trees, carrying with it the faint sound of hooves in the distance. He stands still for a moment, the cold air brushing against his skin, his fingers tightening around the gun. He's been waiting for this. He's been waiting for a long time. And then, in the distance, he sees them. The riders. They're coming. The woman steps out behind him, her face pale in the moonlight. "Please," she says, her voice breaking. "Don't do this." He turns to her, his eyes cold. It's too late. The riders are getting closer now. The gunslinger can see their figures in the distance, the dim outline of their horses, the flash of metal in the moonlight. He feels the tension in the air, the electricity of it, the anticipation of what's to come. He doesn't turn away from her. He doesn't back down. "Stay inside," he says, his voice low, but firm. "This is between him and me." She hesitates, but she doesn't argue. She just nods and steps back inside, leaving him standing alone in the yard, the night stretching out before him like a canyon. His heart pounds in his chest, but he doesn't let it show. He can't. The riders are close now. There are 5 of them, all wearing dark hats, their faces obscured by shadows. The man at the front, the one who's been hunting her for so long, rides ahead of the others, his horse snorting as it slows to a halt. He's tall, lean, with sharp features, his face set in a permanent scowl. His eyes are cold, like the gunslinger's. But there's something different about him. Something darker. The gunslinger knows who he is before he speaks. "You killed him," the man says, his voice low and rough. "You killed the sheriff." The gunslinger doesn't flinch. "I did." The man's eyes narrow. "That was a mistake." The gunslinger raises his gun, pointing it at the man without hesitation. "I don't make mistakes." The man grins, but it's not a friendly smile. It's the smile of someone who's used to getting what they want. "You think you can stop me? You think you can stop me from taking what's mine?" The gunslinger doesn't answer. He's not interested in talking. He's done talking. His finger tightens on the trigger. The first shot rings out, sharp and fast, cutting through the night like thunder. The man at the front jerks back, the sound of the bullet ripping through flesh filling the air. He stumbles, then falls to the ground, the other riders frozen in place, their hands reaching for their guns but too slow. The gunslinger doesn't give them a chance to draw. One by one, he takes them down. The shots are quick, precise, each one a death sentence. The air is thick with smoke and the smell of gunpowder. His heart is steady, his hand firm, his mind clear. This is the only way. When the last man falls, the gunslinger stands still for a moment, the revolver still smoking in his hand. The silence returns, but it's different this time. The weight of what he's done hangs in the air, heavy and final. He doesn't look back at the cabin. He doesn't need to. He's done what he came here to do. And now, it's over. For the first time in years, the gunslinger feels a flicker of something in his chest. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just the knowledge that he's finally free. The woman steps out from the cabin, her eyes wide, her face pale. She looks at the bodies on the ground, then at him. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. She already knows. She knows what they've both been running from, what they've both lost. He holsters his revolver and turns away from the bodies, the night swallowing them whole. It's done. But as he walks away, he knows one thing: no matter how far he goes, the past will always find its way back. And so will she. But for now, they're free. The morning after the storm, the world is quiet again. The land stretches out like it always has, unchanging, silent. The wind whispers through the dry grass, and the sun climbs slowly over the horizon, casting a pale light over the bodies that lie in the dust. The riders are gone. The sheriff is gone. And the gunslinger is still here. He stands outside the cabin, looking out at the empty road, his hand resting on the worn wood of the porch. The woman is inside, but she hasn't come out yet. She hasn't said much since the gunfire, since the final shot rang through the stillness. He doesn't know what's going on in her head. He doesn't know if she's relieved, if she's grateful, or if she feels like everything's just been broken beyond repair. He doesn't know how he feels either. The air feels heavy, as if it's holding something back, like the world is waiting for the next thing to happen. But nothing does. The silence presses down on him, thick and suffocating. He turns his gaze toward the hills, the distant mountains that stretch like sentinels in the distance, unmoving. The land is still, but it's not empty. Not anymore. The woman steps out onto the porch behind him, her step soft, hesitant. She doesn't say anything at first. She just stands there, her eyes scanning the horizon, her face pale in the early morning light. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't have to. He knows she's there. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The wind stirs, rustling the dry grass, but the world around them is still. It feels like the calm before a storm, but neither of them is in a hurry to break the silence. Finally, she speaks. What now? The question is simple, but it hangs in the air like a weight. What now? What comes after all the violence, after all the blood? After everything that's been lost? The gunslinger doesn't have an answer. He never did. He spent his life running, hiding, making choices that led him here, to this moment. But he doesn't know what comes next. Not for him. Not for her. We go, he says quietly, his voice rough from the night's events. We keep moving. She looks at him then, her eyes searching his face. She doesn't say anything, but the look on her face says everything. She's been running her whole life, too. Running from her past, running from the things she can't control. Running from him. But now, there's nothing left to run from. The man she's been looking for, the one who's haunted her for so long, is gone. The sheriff is gone. The world feels different. And yet, it's the same. She doesn't argue. She just nods slowly, her eyes softening. She's not looking at him, not really, but she's with him, in a way. The weight of their shared past, the things they've both done and lost, hangs between them. It's still there, but it's not crushing anymore. It's just a part of who they are now. The gunslinger looks back at the road, his hand tightening on the railing of the porch. It won't be easy, he says, the words almost to himself. It never is. She steps closer, her movements slow, as if she's still unsure of what to say, of what to do. But she's here, standing beside him. That's enough. For now. I know, she replies, her voice low. But maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe it can be different. He turns his head slightly, just enough to catch her eye. There's something in her gaze, something he hasn't seen before, hope, maybe. Or maybe it's just the quiet surrender of someone who's finally learned to let go. The sun is higher now, and the warmth of it reaches them both, casting long shadows over the porch, the land around them. It's a new day, but nothing's really changed. Not for them. For a moment, the world feels like it could go on like this forever. Just the two of them, standing together in the silence, with the weight of everything behind them and the future wide open in front of them. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to do anything. The silence between them is enough. She takes a deep breath, the sound barely audible in the still air. Where do we go? The question is simple, but it carries more weight than anything else she said. It's the question that's been hanging over them both since the beginning. The question that's been keeping them both up at night, wondering if there's a place for them in this world, or if they're just ghosts, drifting in the wind. The gunslinger looks out at the road again, his gaze distant. Somewhere far from here, he says quietly, his voice almost lost in the wind. Somewhere we can start over. She doesn't answer right away. She doesn't need to. The answer's the same for both of them. They don't need a destination. They just need to keep moving. The woman stands beside him for a long moment, her hand brushing against his, her fingers brushing against the rough skin of his palm. Neither of them pulls away. The silence stretches on, but this time, it's different. This time, it feels like a beginning. The weight of their past, of their choices, is still there, but it's not as heavy. It doesn't define them anymore. Not in this moment. For the first time in a long time, they both feel something small, but real. A spark, maybe. A chance. They don't speak as they walk away from the cabin, leaving the past behind them, stepping into the quiet unknown. For the first time, the future is open. And for the first time, they're not running. They're walking forward. Together. The wind picks up, swirling dust along the barren road. The sun is high now, but the heat is not enough to chase the chill from the gunslinger's bones. His eyes scan the horizon, alert, always on edge. But there's something different now. There's a feeling, maybe for the first time, that it's not just him against the world. The woman walks beside him, her silhouette soft in the early light. What if he comes back, she asks quietly, walking beside him. He eyes the horizon. He will. They always do. And then, she presses, her voice barely a whisper. We'll deal with it. Like we always do. They walk on in silence for a moment, the weight of the unspoken heavy between them. You think there's any place we can run to that'll keep us safe, she asks. No such place exists. She stops walking, staring down at the ground. The weight of his words hangs in the air. He looks at her, his voice softening slightly. But we'll keep moving. We'll find something. Maybe not safety, but something better than this. She looks up at him, searching his face for something, anything. Better than this? You really think that? He looks at her, his jaw tight, his eyes hardened, but there's a flicker of something in them, something close to hope. He doesn't let it show. I don't know. But it's all we've got. She nods slowly, almost as if she understands. They begin walking again, side by side. There's no destination, no end in sight. But they're not running. Not anymore. The sun dips lower in the sky, and soon they find themselves standing at the edge of a deserted town. The buildings are crooked, the windows boarded up, and the road is cracked with age. The silence is thick, pressing in around them. It feels like the kind of place where time forgot to leave a mark. They stand at the edge of town for a moment, looking at each other, the weight of it all settling in. Is this it? She asks softly. I don't know, he replies. They walk further into the town, the creak of the boards beneath their boots loud in the silence. They pass through the ruins, the remnants of lives once lived, now abandoned and left to rot. The small, run-down saloon catches his eye. The door hangs loosely on its hinges. Should we? She asks, looking at him. We'll take what we can find. They step inside. The air is thick with dust. The bar is empty except for a couple of chairs and a broken table. A tarnished mirror hangs behind the counter. They pass through the room and into the back, a small, darker space. The quiet is suffocating, like the whole town is holding its breath, waiting for something to break the stillness. There's nothing here, she says, looking around at the empty, decaying space. Not yet, he mutters, his eyes scanning the room. His mind is elsewhere. Always somewhere else. Always searching. He moves toward the window, looking out at the land. A faint sound comes from the distance. Hooves. Getting closer. The woman watches him, waiting for him to speak, but he doesn't. Not yet. You ever think about where we'll go next? She asks quietly, still standing by the door. Every day, he replies, his voice flat. She moves closer, her hand brushing his arm lightly. The touch lingers, but neither of them speaks. The weight of everything between them hangs in the air. The past. The blood. The choices. She looks out at the barren land stretching before them. The town feels like a dead thing, forgotten and left behind. Maybe it's the same for them. Ever wonder what it's like to just stop? To not keep running, she asks, her voice breaking the quiet. I don't know what that looks like, he answers, his eyes still on the window. I don't know if I can keep running anymore, she says, almost to herself. He turns to face her then. His expression is unreadable, but there's something in his eyes, a flicker of something buried deep inside. The weight of it, the tension, is in the way they stand together now, both trapped by what's been and what's still coming. Then we stop, he says quietly. She looks at him, searching his face. He's not running. Not anymore. What happens when we stop? She asks, her voice hesitant, but with a quiet urgency beneath it. We start again, he says, his voice firm, but the weight of the world seems to follow him in his words. There's no easy answer. There never is. They stand there for a long while, the silence between them heavy, but this time, it's different. This time, it's not just a wall of space. It's something they share. The quiet isn't about what's been left behind anymore. It's about what's still possible. She looks back out at the land, the road stretching before them. He stands beside her, feeling the moment pass, not sure where they're going, but knowing they can't keep running. They turn and walk back into the town, toward the unknown. The town is quieter now, as if it has absorbed their presence, the air thick with the weight of things left unsaid. The gunslinger and the woman walk down the narrow street, the old wooden buildings creaking in the faint breeze. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows that stretch across the dirt road. It's not much of a town, but it's the only place they have, and it's the only place they can make their stand. They pass an old church, its windows boarded up, the bell tower long since silent. The doors hang slightly ajar, and the gunslinger stops for a moment, his eyes lingering on it. A place of worship, a place of comfort, but to him, it's nothing more than a broken shell. Just like everything else in this town. The woman notices him stopping, and her gaze follows his. "You ever think about what could have been?" she asks, her voice soft, almost hesitant. He doesn't answer right away. His hand rests on the frame of the church door, fingers brushing the worn wood. The silence between them stretches, thick with memories neither of them wants to revisit. He looks back at her, his face unreadable. "I don't think about things like that," he says finally, his voice low. She nods slowly, understanding more than he says. She knows his past, or at least the shadow of it, and she knows he's not one to dwell on what's been lost. But for her, the weight of the past still lingers. She doesn't know how to let it go, not yet. Maybe not ever. "You think they'll come looking for us here?" she asks, looking out at the empty streets, the silence of the town settling around them. The gunslinger shifts his weight, his gaze turning back to the horizon, where the land meets the sky in a blur of dust and fading light. "They always come. But they'll have to get through me first." She steps closer, her boots crunching on the gravel. "And what if there's more of them? More than just that sheriff?" "Doesn't matter," he replies, his voice steady, though there's a coldness to it now. "It never mattered before. And it doesn't matter now." She looks up at him, her eyes meeting his with a mix of doubt and something else, something softer. "You really think we can keep running? Keep fighting?" He pauses, his expression hardening. "It's the only thing I know how to do." She doesn't say anything more. She doesn't need to. They both know the road they're on now is a hard one. There's no going back. There's no turning around. The silence falls between them again, heavy but not oppressive. They've come to a point where words are no longer necessary. They know what they have to do. The gunslinger turns toward the town's main street, the setting sun casting long shadows across the ground. They walk together, side by side, the weight of their pasts hanging over them but not pulling them down. They've chosen this path, even if they don't know where it leads. They walk past the old saloon, the windows dark and empty, the door swinging slightly in the wind. It's a reminder of a life that's long gone, a time before everything went wrong. But it's still here, still standing, just like them. The woman looks at the building for a moment, then looks away. "How much longer do you think we can keep running?" she asks, her voice a whisper. The gunslinger doesn't answer immediately. He looks up at the sky, the clouds darkening as the night begins to settle in. "Not much longer," he says quietly. "But we'll make it." And with that, they keep walking. The weight of their choices, the burden of the past, isn't gone, but it's no longer holding them back. They're moving forward now, even if the road ahead is uncertain. They don't know what the future holds, but they know one thing for sure: they're not alone anymore. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough.